This is Josh Bycer from GameWisdom.com. I hope you enjoyed this Critical Thought, your daily discussion on game design. Hello and welcome to today's Critical Thought. Before we get going, thank you to currently 944 subscribers here on YouTube. Hope everyone's enjoying the content, and for you first timers, be sure to like and subscribe as we are slowly approaching 1,000. For today's Critical Thought, we're going to turn to a topic that I've talked about a very long time ago. I think I even made an article about this back in the day regarding multi-system design. This is, to me, one of the hallmarks of masterclass game design, and something very hard to pull off. And I'm realizing now that after coming up with that term, it doesn't roll off the tongue as much. But multi-system design refers to games that are built not just on combining genres, but combining game systems into an almost Frankenstein-esque take. Almost to the point where it's 2 or 3 games combined into one. And I know that can be a little bit confusing, so let's talk about a few examples that are and aren't examples. The first and probably most famous example of multi-system design would be the original XCOM, featuring the base management strategic layer, and then you have the tactical squad-based combat as a second system. One of my personal favorite games, Star Control 2, had the universe exploration, the landing on planets exploration and driving your lander, and then the actual combat, which took place on ship versus ship. In these examples, you have 3 or more different systems of mechanics that are working together. Now, what makes them multi-system is the fact that it's not just making one game that has multiple components. It's basically taking elements of different games and combining them into one thing, even though they retain their uniqueness and originality. And some examples of games that aren't examples of multi-system design, Grand Theft Auto would be a good one. Grand Theft Auto does feature multiple game mechanics. You have driving, shooting, fighting, the open world, but they're all still built into one layer or one foundation of mechanics. The same goes for a game like Metroidvania. Even though the Metroidvania genre is literally combining 2 different game genres, it's still built on one foundation. And we even talk about games that have very complicated layers. Grand strategy games like Europa Universalis, Crusader Kings, even Sid Meier's Civilization would not be considered multi-system game design. Because even though they are built on different systems, again, it's built on one foundation or one form of interaction. When we look at games that are built on multi-system design, most likely they feature completely different UIs or completely different structures depending upon what system you're looking at. A more modern example of that would be the Total War series, that you have the tactical commanding army layer, and then we go up to the macro managing your empire layer. An older example would be the Age of Wonders series that combine, again, the civilization or grand strategy, but with a tactical strategy or tactical RPG combat system. And again, in these kinds of games, what makes them multi-system is the fact that you can't have a one-size-fits-all UI or one-size-fits-all control scheme that works. You're basically creating 2 or even more different games and then putting them together. And that's what makes multi-system design very hard to get around, and kind of a contradiction of what we normally consider great game design. We've talked about this on Game Wisdom multiple times, but the concept of harmonizing game design, where everything fits together, that it's one well-oiled machine instead of just multiple elements stitched together to create some kind of Frankenstein monster. But multi-system game design is very much that. You're taking game designs and systems that normally wouldn't go together or don't fit together and making one complicated game out of it. A smaller example of multi-system game design would be games that feature like different mini games depending upon like different tasks or roles. And I know of a few of them that I've played in the past, but I honestly can't remember their names off the top of my head. I wouldn't consider something like Mario Party. That definitely wouldn't be it. But I know there have been games that had like a mini game for cooking, and then a mini game for blacksmithing or painting or stuff like that. But multi-system design is definitely something that is very hard to get down. Again, when you're building multiple game mechanics or multiple game systems, you're essentially creating multiple games that are then kind of like cut in half or cut in quarters, and then designing a game around it. And in some cases, like we said with the Total War, XCOM, and Star Control, these games become so good, or they are so well designed, that you don't really see them as separate elements, but as this cohesive whole. And that is ultimately the goal of a great game, when everything fits together. But multi-system game design is definitely, again, a high mark or masterclass design. And when it works, it can produce games that aren't easily copied and can really stand the test of time. Again, there's a reason why we're still talking about the original XCOM, Star Control, and the Total War series today. But this will probably be a quicker critical thought. I'm glad I was able to get that out. It was a little bit of a tongue twister, because it's not something that too many developers use. And for those of you watching, if you can think of any good examples of multi-system design in today's market, definitely let me know, because it is more or less a concept from the older days of the industry. I'm talking late 80s to early to mid 90s. This was the period where developers were trying to figure things out and experiment with a variety of concepts and designs. One other thing to keep in mind that is an example of multi-system design are games that have almost real and turn-based layers to them, such as older RPGs where you're playing, let's say you're exploring in a field or an overworld, and then when enemy hits you, it transitions into a RPG or the turn-based system. Even though they are two separate systems, it's not really, I guess you could say, complete enough on their own. When we look at multi-system design, usually the systems are fleshed out enough that they could reasonably stand on their own. Granted, it's not going to be an amazing 90-hour game, but it's still complete enough that someone could play, let's say, the grand strategy part of XCOM, or I'm sorry, of Total War, or play the turn or the real-time tactical managing the armies layer and still get a decent experience. Same thing goes with the original XCOM. You could have a economic or strategic based game out of just managing your base and deciding where to send troops, or you could have a game built on just tactical battles, managing armies, and the like. Now, of course, with these games, again, they turned into becoming greater than the sum of their parts because of how well these systems were integrated with a really good positive feedback loop of growth and progression. But it's still very hard to design a game in such a way, especially in today's market where a lot of game designs have become more standardized, thanks to either unified control schemes or just people accepting and realizing the most optimal ways of building a game or UI design. But again, if you can think of any other modern examples, please let me know below. But we're going to wrap up today's critical thought here. Again, this is going to be a quicker one. It is late Sunday night, and I got a really good one planned for tomorrow. I've been holding on to this one for the last few days because it's going to be going with tomorrow's post on Game Wisdom. So be sure to tune in for that. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Once again, if you're enjoying things, be sure to like and subscribe. If you have any questions or have topics you'd like to suggest for future critical thoughts, be sure to leave them below. Once again, I'm Josh Bycer from GameWisdom.com, where we examine the art and science of games. Thanks for tuning in to today's critical thought, and check back tomorrow for more great content here and on GameWisdom.com. Take care. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoy it, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and of course share with your friends. It always helps out. For daily posts on all manner of game design and industry topics, check out game-wisdom.com. To support the site and everything that I do, be sure to check out the Patreon campaign. If we can hit goals, it will mean more content for everyone to enjoy, and I'll be able to support myself and my household. If you want to follow me, you can find me on Twitter at GWBycer for updates throughout the day and random thoughts from me. And lastly, you can find me on Twitch right over there at GW Bycer for daily streams most nights around 10 Eastern. Thanks again for watching the video, and be sure to check out more great content coming to the Game Wisdom channel real soon.